And we are live here to chat about tonight's episode of Arrow, which was entitled Inheritance. It's episode 17 of season 7, and I just finished simultaneously editing the tweet saying that I'm live. So now I'm actually live, and also already gave the intro, and anybody joining from Twitter doesn't have to sit through the intro because they probably already know the title and sequence, and probably just saw that I'm wearing pajama pants. Hey, how are you guys? The episode just finished 9 minutes ago. Heads up, of course, this will contain spoilers. And first and foremost, I want to hear what you guys thought about the episode. We always start with rating it on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being you loved everything about it, 5 being 1 being you hated everything about it, 5 being you loved everything about it. I really need to get it together. I haven't really eaten enough today. It's a whole thing. We're fine. We're here. Less crisis-y than we were a couple weeks ago. And tonight's episode, it really had some ups and downs. And I think a lot of people had low expectations going into this because the description of this episode, my God, on IMDb and Series Guide, all whatever. The description of this episode was really, I mean, it was centered around Black Siren, but it didn't make it sound interesting. It was kind of childishly written, if that makes any sense. It was like, so-and-so is excited that their friend's working with it. It just sounded like a kid show. It was so weird, honestly. If you haven't read the description for this episode, just go look it up. A lot of people had low expectations, is all I'm going to say. For me, I'm kind of in a position where it wasn't so much the fact that this episode was supposed to be Black Siren centric that was putting me off, because I don't really have I don't really have any expectations for Black Siren based on the character of Laurel Lance, because I wasn't in Laurel Lance's court. I thought that the show didn't ever do with her what they could have done with her, and it was kind of whatever. But with Black Siren, I feel like they've gotten a lot of a fresh start, not a full fresh start, but a lot of a fresh start because they have new writers. And as long as Black Siren is written as an entirely separate character, there's a lot of opportunity there to do something different, do something more villainy and fun and relevant to the story. Anyways, all of that to say, I wasn't necessarily coming into this with low expectations just based on that character alone. But, so yeah, Stormy's in chat. She says there were bright spots, but I didn't like this episode. I'll give it a 2.5. Yeah, I mean, I would give it about maybe a 3. For me, I just felt like there were a lot of side characters that they were trying to highlight in this episode that I'm like, I feel like I'm constantly in this position of being like, it's not that I dislike them, it's that they're not very interesting. You know what I mean? They're not very interesting. I would put Renee, Black Siren, maybe Diaz as a concept, and Emiko and Robert Queen and that whole storyline. All of those are in this bucket of, it's not that I dislike them, and I know I've already started this with like this defensive, here are all the reasons why I don't hate Black Siren or whatever. It's not that I dislike them. That's not why I'm watching Arrow when there's only like 15 episodes of this show left. So that was kind of a struggle. Now, with the OTA presence that was there, with the other ancillary characters that I do kind of care about a bit more. So Elena would be one of them. I already put Emiko in the don't care category, and I kind of will have to put her in the care category too. With all of those, their presence in this episode was great. So I give it marks for that even though it was centered around people that I don't care about as much, the characters that I do care about were written pretty well. Brian Perez says I would give it a 2.5. I don't really care for Emiko. Yeah, I want so badly to care about Emiko. She's in that same bucket where for some reason I get defensive and I want to be like, I don't dislike her, whatever. But it's not even, at this point, I'm going to be honest, it's not even just that they started her so late in the season. It's also that her storyline is so aligned and copycatish with previous Thea storylines, that it's really just like an alternate approach to Thea. And I loved Thea. I miss Thea so much, but this whole Emiko thing, it's not even from the best parts of Thea's storyline. Stormy says, can we please have female villains who aren't motivated by daddy issues? Dear God, right? Kate Johnson says, there were the great Felicity lines, but other than that, I either didn't care or I saw it coming. 3 out of 5. Yeah, I think, that 3 out of 5 is kind of where I'm at with it. There were pieces that are predictable. I would put Emiko in that category. We kind of knew based on her presence in, not the episode last week, but the week before, that we were going to see more of these sort of some version of daddy issues with her and her tie to Vility, which could have been so interesting. First of all, they need more actual female villains of it. I forgot about Dinah entirely on this. I'll put her in the category for this week. I'm so sorry. Again, I feel so defensive about putting people, especially women, in those categories, but it's really not me, it's you. Stormy says, Thea had daddy issues and was trained by a supervillain. The difference is I care about Thea and I have no reason to care about Emiko. Yeah, well, yeah. Thea had this certain snark and charm and edge and all of that kind of didn't always come across as she was trying to get the audience to like her, you know what I mean? Like she was never really trying to be a badass. She kind of stumbled into badassery, but she was always just kind of being a brat, and it was charming without trying to be. To me, I know everybody had their ups and downs with Thea, but she had this sort of, even if you disliked her and all of her bad choices and whatever, you sort of had a soft spot for her because we genuinely got to see her grow up from when she was, supposed to be 16 or whatever. And she just always went so balls to the wall with her bad choices that it wasn't like they were constantly trying to make her sympathetic. With Emiko, I feel like they're trying way too hard to make her sort of super sympathetic, but also super villainy at the same time, and also super badassy. They're trying too much with too little. Just pick one thing. You can't tell 4 different stories for a brand new character all at the same time. You can't give them that many super 12 out of 10 character traits. They give her all this backstory, and in the backstory, she's supposed to be snarky, and she's supposed to be badass, and she's supposed to be bad, but also sympathetic, but also kind of bad, but also kind of selfish, but also really, empathize with her because she's trying to get somebody else's approval, whatever. Too much. We can have layers without trying to tell everybody's story in one character. That's kind of it. Storm says Robert Queen was a horrible father to all 3 of his kids. He was ready to dump all of them with whatever younger woman he wanted to get with. Facts. And again, I think that's why we're supposed to sympathize with Emiko, because she was so mistreated. But at the same time, this is a fictional character, not a real person. And we can weigh the objective empathy of, okay, I feel bad for this character because of what they went through, with the realism of, but was this story even beneficial to the overall story at this point? Real life tragedies, we can't weigh whether or not they're beneficial to a story. They're just a tragedy and they are what they are, whatever. But with a fictional tragedy, we can weigh whether or not it benefits the story. And I'm not convinced that Emiko's tragic story benefits this story at this place when there are this few episodes left and this many characters who need their stories told. Because in this episode, for example, we just came off of a full 1 hour all flash forwards episode with many hanging pieces and many things still to be told, many characters that we only see in the flash forwards who we've all kind of started to connect with. And we saw none of that this episode. We didn't have any time for flash forwards because we had to have the main story and Renee and Emiko's romance and Emiko's flash forwards or flashback, sorry, and Emiko and Oliver's thing, and then Oliver and Laurel's thing, and then Dinah and Laurel's thing. There's just so many things. We couldn't get to the flash forwards. And again, not to take a heartless approach, but not all these tragedies had the same worth from a fictional perspective. And also, not all of them have the same business investment because, and somebody mentioned this on Twitter, I'm sorry, I would credit you. They were pointing out that Emiko, with all of these flashback situations that we have, where we're building up this story for her, at this point, that only makes business sense for the show if they're trying to build up a spin-off for someone. They're not trying to, like, I'm sorry for the 2.5 Emiko fans out there, they're not trying to build up a spin-off for Emiko, for Diaz, for Renee, whatever. If they have a chance at a spin-off, it's going to be either big names like Batwoman, which I think is already happening, or the full trio in the future, which has the premise and the talent, you know, you've got the Cat McNamara thing, whatever, that they could do at least one season spin-off of that, or like a web show, whatever. They're not going to do a spin-off of Emiko, so at this point, all of the story time they're wasting on her is a bit of a waste. Sorry about it. Kate Johnson says, I do feel bad not to write Emiko, but she's living in the shadow of Thea's absence, and Mia smokes greatness. True. It's true. I'm so sorry. Support all women. She's doing great. Love her. Young version of her was fantastic. Don't need it in the last 15 episodes of the show. So sorry. Stormy says, I agree with Diggle. Emiko's like Andy. They made their choices, but they want to blame that on Diggle and Oliver. Yeah, I mean, it's just this, it's too late in the game. If they wanted this storyline, they could have brought Thea back for it for a couple episodes. Well, I don't know if they could. I don't know if she'd show up. If they really wanted this, it would have had to be with Thea. Brian Perez says, I thought Emiko was going to die at the end of the episode because in the back in season 6, every time there was a flashback episode, that character died. Oh. Every time there was a flashback episode, that character then followed up. I did not make that connection. Obviously, that didn't happen, but it's an interesting pull. Stormy says Emiko will be the one to steal Archer because Oliver stupidly wants to redeem her. It's possible. Because I think, aren't they trying to make her look younger right now as well? So we could have the same actress playing a flash forward version of her without too much change. Am I reaching? Maybe. Yeah, a lot of comments about Robert Queen being a bad father in the chat here and also on social media. I like that people get excited about the pull of getting season 1 characters back onto here. This late in the game, there's so few of them. So getting Robert Queen to show up is kind of, ooh, you know, whatever. And Oliver has so little family at this point. It's kind of a big deal if any of them show up on the show. I'm over this specific Robert Queen storyline. Storylines that I think it was kind of okay / interesting to have him and Moira and so on back were like that Alien episode, which the premise of that was stupid, but when Oliver was in this alternate reality where he saw like a happy life or a different life or whatever, his parents were still alive, that seeing a snippet of fantasy, Robert and Moira Queen, was kind of interesting. But this long-term storyline where he's all just tied into the flashbacks, I don't know. It's just a bit much, knowing we have essentially half a season left. Getting to see the inception of the Archer program was really cool, though. I really enjoyed Felicity and Elena's scenes. I thought that, again, that's one of the few friendships in the Arrowverse that I really buy into. They have a really good rapport. They have clear dialogue for them that's believably matching what the characters, their character traits and how they speak to each other, to others. Stormy asks, what do you think about Emiko having plans for the Gambit? Wouldn't surprise me if Malcolm was in the 9th Circle and they helped blow up the board. Yeah, this whole thing with the 9th Circle seems like a Malcolm environment, doesn't it? Like, it seems like a Merlin thing, and I would be super surprised if he isn't at least showing up or being referenced in some way. As for the Gambit, I think that high level, from a plot perspective, bringing that back in serves the function of tying our evaluation of this story currently, or our presence in this story, back to season 1. And back then it was all about, okay, who stole the Gambit? Where's the Gambit? Whatever's going on. Wasn't it stashed in some warehouse back in the day? Like in season 1, and then Walter was there. I don't know. They're trying to tie it back to season 1. and they've been doing that all throughout this, but especially with this whole like inheritance concept for this episode. Everything that Robert went through is now sort of getting passed on to Oliver in season 1. And now we have Emiko coming in, and a lot of people have commented, rightly so, that Emiko is a bit of a season 1 Oliver presence. And so with her, we're seeing the same thing where we're seeing a different inheritance passed down to her from Robert. But at this point, again, in that set of transactions in the storyline, we're seeing a transaction that's somewhat like technically meaningful. It's technically from a meaningful source, Robert, technically to a meaningful source, another queen, one of the last queens. But the transaction itself doesn't hold much value because we're not invested in this part of Robert, / possibly not invested in Robert at all. I have no horse in the game when it comes to him. And we're not invested in Emiko yet, and we're not necessarily being given reason to be. So they're putting a lot of weight into us caring about that, when what we really care about is the existing queen family, so Oliver and Felicity, and their kids, William, Mia, so on, and also the family ties that they have that are not necessarily biological, but are still just as meaningful, if not more so, of a family tie. So the tie between Felicity and Diggle, for example, is not literally family, but the transaction between there is going to be more meaningful as a plot transaction compared to the supposedly biological tie between Robert and Emiko. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse with that, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. Stormy says Moira had the gambit stashed in a warehouse when Oliver found out about it. It was moved to someplace we don't know. Yeah. Wow, throwback. I haven't watched season 1 in ages. I watched it half live, half after at the time, like half right before season 2. And since then, I haven't really rewatched much. Ben Levine says Emiko is annoying. Yeah, like she doesn't get under my skin type of annoying. If she did, I think she'd probably be more interesting. She's just, it's the wrong character at the wrong time in the wrong place. Actress is doing a great job. The writers are fine. Like, nobody is to blame. Everybody's wonderful. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong character. Brian Perez says they want it to tie to the season 1 thing so bad they should just bring Walter back. They should just bring Walter back. Bring Walter back. If you want to do other flashback ties, you can do a flashback tie to season 2 with Sin, which is Sarah's sidekick. She was pretty cool, and she and Roy and Thea were all really good friends. So now with them having Roy back, not Thea, that would have been a great opportunity to bring Sin in, just saying. Other flashback people, not full flashback, just flashback to season 1. Obviously, having Reza around really gives it a clear tie to season 1, and it's been more than a little bit hinted at the fact that Reza was pretty heavily involved in actually raising Oliver. They have some, not a ton of, again, a lot of people from season 1 are dead, but they have some options of ways they can tie it back to season 1, literally, or by bringing somebody back, or by referring back to people from that time, or sort of recreating that same plot presence. They have someone like Reza, they could sort of recreate her presence through another character. Not that I recommend it. I like the actual real Reza. Kathleen Gatti, I believe is her name in real life. With the Ninth Circle, though, I don't really have a lot to say about that because that is something of a direct reference from the comic book, so that's stories existing. There's not too much theorizing, I suppose, to do tied to it. We kind of saw that coming. That was hinted at with the whole with the storyline back in the day where one person shot like everybody in the room or whatever, got his way into the circle, whatever his name was. Was it Dragon that actually did that, or was it one of the other villains? If it was Dragon and I forgot that it was actually him that did that, that's in keeping with my character, which is someone who ignores Dragon at all costs. We only have 2 minutes left. Wow. What do you guys want to see in the remainder of the season? So in the last, this was episode 17. So in the last 5 episodes, I believe, of this season, what would you, it was Diaz, Stormy said. It was Dragon. Okay. What would you guys like to see in the last 5 episodes before the end of the last full season of Arrow? what I would like to see. I would like to see us end with a strong villain and actually end that villain storyline, whether it is that they, you know, it's an unhappy ending and the villain takes over and kills everyone, whatever, or whether it's a happy ending, the villain stopped. I would just like to see an end to the villain because we didn't get that last season and it was just really oddly handled. I would like to see more flash forwards and an answer to how the flash forwards tie to present day. I don't want them leaving that still as a question mark. I want them to take a stance on whether the flash forwards are a real follow from present day or whether they're a particular possible future, whatever thing that they kept saying for the first like half of the season. And I'd like to see, I know this is going to happen, I just would like to see more of a shift back to the original team. All these side stories, I'm so sorry, they can all be pared down and they can all take a backseat to the rest of the original team. With the exception of nobody, with the exception of some characters who were just truly outstanding, like Nyssa, I'll throw Elena, not her too, she could stay. With the exception of a couple key characters who are sort of like, you can always stay, you're fantastic. These side characters just get way too much screen time for a show that only has, you know, a few handfuls of episodes left. Anyways. Kate says Emiko being evil just steals another opportunity for Black Siren. Yeah, I think Emiko being evil, Dinah being indecisive and kind of like must be by the book, all of that is just sort of a consequence of them trying to redeem Black Siren. They've had to sort of create a place in the story for her to be good, and in doing so have had to make other people be bad because there was never a place in the story for Black Siren to be good. She was already killed off as good. Stormy says, I want more answers via the flash forwards, like where's Diggle? Would love to know about Oliver, but I doubt we will. More cute queen family scenes, more Felicity building her company. Smoke Tech has definitely been one of the most engaging parts of the storyline. For sure. Brian Perez says, I don't know anything about the Ninth Circle, but I think it should have been saved for season 8 since they have to come up with a 9 episodes arc. Ooh, yeah. Well, they might save some of it for season 8. Stormy says, I think Renee dies in a flash forward to make up for his throwing in with the evil Galaxy Corp. God, we can only hope. I would love that. I'm kidding. I don't really celebrate characters' deaths, like not in that way, but Brian says, I would love if they would focus back onto the main characters instead of side characters. Right there with you. And with that said, we are 2 minutes over time. I'm so sorry. I love chatting with you guys this week. Looking forward to the last 5 episodes of this season. I can't believe we're so close to the end. If you have any other thoughts, theories, questions, etc. that you want to talk to me about, my information's in the description down below. Social media links, all of that. Or you can leave me a comment. Last week's episode, somebody left me a comment asking if I had a mic to plug in, like my podcasting mic. Sometimes the audio on these is not great. I actually do just use like a webcam mic for these live ones because my podcasting setup's in the other room. So if anybody else feels that the audio is kind of sketchy on some of these, just let me know. Leave me a comment or message me on Twitter, and I can look at getting my mic set up transferred over to here rather than keeping it where it was before, if anybody cares about the technical quality of these. I will talk to you guys next week. Or no, we're actually going on hiatus for a couple weeks. I forgot to mention that. After hiatus, I will talk to you guys. Bye.